Welcome to PhD with Women on IT, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Niyati Tamaskar. Topic: Thriving as an Immigrant Woman of Color and in Engineering. Episode 114 starts here after a short summer break. It sounds like it's been short, but really 1 month of full bliss and pleasure. I hope you are going to be ready to ask questions to our next guest. But before we do that, let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on Women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo. And empathy is critical when you're thriving as an immigrant woman of color in engineering. Let me just mention a couple of great positive things that's been happening in the world. Tamika Beckham, congratulations to you. Tamika is a former guest of PhD, and she won the journalist, she won the Merit in the Making Influencer Award at the Coral Gables Chamber of Commerce on August 24th. We are so proud of you. Hopefully we'll meet again in sunny Miami. A big thank you to our former PhD guest, Dr. Tracy Broward, for making a very informative and helpful article of the power of being proactive. 5 ways to develop this surprising skill. You can delve into the complete article on the Forbes website. And finally, congratulations to the CEO and founder of Epic Queen, Ana Karen Ramirez, for winning the Most Impactful Initiative Award and the 2nd Annual Women in Tech Global Movement LATAM Awards held at Lima, Peru, last August 29th. May you continue to inspire more people, not just women of color in engineering. Now let's go back to our topic. Thriving as an immigrant woman of color in engineering. Engineering is a field already known for its groundbreaking advancements, takes on a new dimension when seen through the eyes of those who've conquered not just technical hurdles, but societal ones as well. As an immigrant and as a woman of color, Niyati Tamaskar brings a fresh perspective, navigating a foreign land and a historically male-dominated landscape, while inspiring others to embrace their own uniqueness and strive for excellence. Niyati Tamaskar has 18 years of experience in developing cutting-edge electronic controls for diverse applications, including natural gas engines. Niyati is also the dynamic regional leader of the Center for Women in Technology, North America, where she's a driving force for change. Join us, ask questions, say hello to us, because we need all the help we can get, and that's the best way to support us, by raising questions, asking for clarifications, and being active parts of the community. Niyati, let me start with a basic question. Where in the world are you at the moment?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in and having me as a guest, Women on IT. I am currently based out of Columbus, Indiana.
Fantastic, but to give us a bit of background, was that the first place you came as an immigrant, or was there any other place that you visited when you started your career?
Sure. So it's been a bit of a journey. I left home 22 years ago. I got to the United States in the lesser known Columbus, Ohio. to go to university at Ohio State University in 2001. I digress a little bit from the geography question to history as well. It just so happened that I came to the US 2 weeks before 9/11. And when I say 9/11, I don't mean the anniversary of 9/11. I mean September 11, 2001. So the first place I lived in was Columbus, Ohio. I was there for 4 years of undergrad. I then moved to Peoria, Illinois, and worked there for 5 years. After that, my husband and I, we moved to Peterborough, UK, and lived in a town called Leamington Spa. We were there for 3 years. And finally, I'm back in Columbus, and now I live in Columbus, Indiana. So we've been here 10 years in Columbus, Indiana.
Fantastic. What made you choose this location?
It's the headquarters of the company I work for. I work for a Fortune 150 company called Cummins Inc. We make engines, amongst many other things.
Engines for what?
For
cars?
Well, for semi-trucks, for construction equipment, but also for the Dodge Ram pickup truck. We also provide engines and battery operated only options for school buses. We're into renewable energies, so the portfolio is very vast. But traditionally, when people think of Cummins, they think of diesel engines.
Fantastic. So, Niyati, tell me, what made you be interested in that field?
Well, I wanted to be an engineer because my father was an engineer, as was my maternal grandfather. I had an aptitude for math, and I really enjoy problem solving. And so all of that led me to engineering. How I ended up in this particular field of manufacturing or engines is actually just by chance. I was on a student visa needing a company to sponsor me on my work permit or the H-1B visa, and I would have worked anywhere. It just so happened that the first company that was willing to sponsor my visa was Caterpillar, based out of Peoria, Illinois, and that's how I got into the field of manufacturing and construction. And within Caterpillar, what really interested me was engines, and that's how I then narrowed down my focus to engines.
Well, construction is not really a female-oriented industry. I mean, majority of people working in construction, I think we discussed it before, are men. How did you find your way? How did you navigate in that male-dominated industry? And what was your humble beginnings?
Sure. I like the challenge of the only room. So whether it's the only woman, the only person of color, the only immigrant. And I celebrate that uniqueness because I've always said this to myself, and I say this to my children as well, is why would you want to try and fit when you were made to stand out? And so that just gives me, more reason to be the only person that's different in the room, and I thrive in those environments.
Absolutely, that's not necessarily a challenge, that can be opportunity. And we have some comments from the audience. That's opportunity for them to also say hello. Aisha Dalal is saying hello from all your friends and family in India, Niyati. You do us all proud. And Mary, I missed PhD. I'm glad it's back. Hello, Beata, and hi to your lovely guest, Niyati. Thank you, Mary. Lovely to see you, Mary and Aisha. Hopefully, you will get some nitty-gritty question to grill our lovely guest tonight. So, Niyati, going from the caterpillar now into another kind of engine-oriented field, how has it been so far? Because you've been 10 years with the same company in your last job.
I've been with Cummins for 13 years. Caterpillar was 5, so a total of 18. I'm definitely sticking to it. I really enjoy it. I like the town that we live in, the diversity that it offers, while still not being a big city and having to deal with traffic and commute and higher expenses. I love my work to the point where I joke to my husband that I'll be like walking into Cummins building, the headquarters, with my walker and with an expired badge, and like the security officer will have to tell me again to remind you, ma'am, you no longer work here, because I'll keep wanting to work. So yeah, I hope that for everyone, because if work wasn't fun and something where you grew and thrived, then it wouldn't be worth doing, right? You wouldn't just do it for the paycheck. You would find something else. But I find my work really fulfilling. So I'm gonna stick around.
Cool. I'm sure it's pleasing not just for employees, I'm sure it's pleasing for the society. I mean, definitely we need more women in technology, in engineering, in construction, all these fields that are underrepresented by women in tech. So, Niyati, we are talking all about the underdog, I mean, the woman of color in engineering. What would be your number one advice to those from your country who would love to join this beautiful, exciting career?
Okay. I would like to answer that by not just narrowing it down to my country, but I think women in general. Um, and before I give that piece of advice, I want to set the stage. So, first thing I want to state is that there are no handouts in life. Now, the reason I say that is because even today I am asked at a career fair, how many women do you need to hire? Or what's the quota system? And I find it appalling that we're in 2023 and we're still under the notion that she only got the job because she's a woman. Now, replace the word woman with person of color, your disability status, minority. I think you catch my drift, right? So I think women work harder than men while doing the same job. And while this is sounds a bit of like my opinion, it's also been studied. So there was an article published very recently in January of this year in a magazine called Current Biology. And it said that women work harder and more intensively than men across all populations. And that is really interesting because research also shows that women are expected to work as though we have no children. At the same time, we're expected to raise children as though we have no work. Now that I've set the stage, here's my piece of advice to women. Know that you have earned a seat at the table. The operative word is earned. Know that you have earned a seat at the table and that your voice deserves to be heard.
Mm. Your voice deserves to be heard, but what to do when your voice is not heard? Because I bet you've had many opportunities when you wanted to say something and you said it, and then it was repeated by white male in the audience, and everybody was clapping to that white guy.
I love this question because I do it even today. So two things. Oh, when you're not heard is if you've said it and people weren't paying attention and a white male says it, or they were paying attention but it doesn't register and a white male says the same thing and his idea is considered brilliant. I just kind of raise my hand and say, okay, I'm sorry. How is that different from what I just said? So I just call people out on it. And then the other thing is when I am talked over or interrupted, I normally turn the table around. Instead of saying, please don't interrupt me, I say, I'm not able to pay attention to you when you talk over me. So persist, be bold.
Beautiful. I'm not able to talk over you when you're not listening to me as well. So let's go into some questions. Olga Vasina is saying, delighted to see PhD back. Hello, Niyati. What was the biggest culture shock in moving to the US to study? And what was the biggest culture shock in working in the USA?
Sure. The biggest culture shock moving to the U.S. was I had not studied the dorm system and where I was going to be living, and I was assigned a engineering honors dorm, which was no surprise because I'm really good at what I do. And what surprised me was that in the honors dorm it was a 5-story building. Uh, Out of the 5 stories, I was the only immigrant and only person of color, male or female, only person of color in that dorm. That was a bit of a culture shock. And also, this is to set the stage. I went to Ohio State University, one of the biggest colleges and campuses in the United States. So that came as a surprise. The other thing that came as a surprise, this is lack of research on my bit. The dorm I was in was a co-ed floor, meaning I had 3 roommates, and all 4 of us were women. That was gender based. But our next door neighbors on both sides were a room of 4 boys each. And the resident advisor, the RA, was also male. And I was kind of not prepared for having a co-ed floor. It's not that Ohio State didn't inform me. I just didn't do my research or didn't read. So that was a bit of my initial culture shock. The biggest culture shock for me when I started work was it is very common in the West, UK, US places, where you will have your longer official first name like Thomas or William, and you would go by Tom or Bill. Whereas in India, while we do have nicknames, our nicknames can be rather embarrassing. So I'm going to pick on my friend Aisha since she's called in. A beautiful name like Aisha will probably be shortened to Aishu. My name is Niyati, and it was shortened to Nitu. And I get to the work question. What happened at work was when I initially joined, because my name is unique and harder to pronounce, it's Niyati, I was asked by the hiring manager if I had a nickname I went by. And while I do have nicknames, no one other than my family calls me by my nickname. And it's a term of endearment. It's just not something I would have officially on a paper anywhere. And so I had a complete moment of self-identity crisis, moment of weakness, and the fact that they were sponsoring my H-1B, they were automatically in a position of power. So that culture shock bit turned into an identity crisis, which made me temporarily change my name. I didn't do anything legally, I promise, but I changed my name from Niyati to Nina on the books because it was easier to say. And I thought, I just don't want to be causing anybody any trouble and making them take an effort to remember my name or learn how to pronounce it. And so I said, I'll go by Nina. That lasted all of 1 week. I felt like such a sellout, and that is not who I am. And I wasn't being true to my identity. I have a beautiful name. It means destiny. It was given to me by my father, and I'm absolutely proud of my uniqueness. And so after that week of embarrassment and culture shock, I sheepishly came out clean and acknowledged to my manager that my name is Niyati. I don't have a nickname that I use outside of home, and that we just have to change my badge and everything else that I've done, including email address. Yeah, people still talk about it, and it's okay. I'm okay sharing.
So that's an interesting point of discussion, because you talked about the fact that you had a sponsor and that automatically changed the power dynamic. Now, how to keep your power when the dynamic is not there? How did you step back? I mean, apart from changing your name badge, what else did you have to do or rethink to strategize to make sure that the power is at par?
Yeah, I think the main thing is what I've said before, being true to yourself. So making decisions and sharing your thoughts or coming up with solutions to complex problems, but always at the end of the day, being true to yourself, knowing that you've given it your all. I think that can help. And the other thing is being bold like I am. So standing up and saying, hey, this is exactly what I just said. How is it different? Why is someone else getting credit for it? And I think that bit of courage has always been innate to me. I've always been bold, and so that may not come naturally to others, but I would say the people that are on the call and that are in the room, if you find someone being hesitant, be their ally, stand up for them. And I've done that so many times, because I will interrupt, including my manager. I'll say, just hold your thought there. Someone else here had something they were about to share and they got interrupted. And I'm happy to be an ally for others.
All right. So, being bold, not bossy, Ali for Nati. Now I have a couple of comments. Excuse me, just checking. Hello again. Unfortunately, we are facing a little bit of an issue with connectivity. Now, since I am not sure whether you can hear me, here is Niyati. Hello, hello.
Hey.
Hello again. Niyati, I'm so sorry we had some brief interruption. Now, we have a couple of great supporters from your side. An amazing and marvelous woman, Niyati, proud of you. Your hard work says bye. And Justin Blonenberg, hello from your friends and family at Cummings. You are a wonderful inspiration for all of us. Absolutely, I agree. And IPO VIT, that would be Patrick Young. Fabulous to see Niyati, an employee of Cummins, whose diesel engines blazed a trail at the Indy 500 many years ago. Well, what could be other than talking about engines? Patrick, the petrol head, always finds opportunity to surprise me with something that is a motor head oriented. Now, Ram Kaka says, shout out from your second grade classmates. We always knew you were going to be a trailblazer. Ram is also asking a question. Over your 2 decades in tech, what would you say has improved and what would you say has probably gotten worse for immigrant women in tech?
Great question, Ram, and thanks for throwing me a tough one. You couldn't ask an easier question? Okay, so what has gotten better for immigrant women in tech is definitely representation. So I see more people that look like me, and actually more people of color that are in position of leadership. So that's definitely gotten better. I can't honestly think of anything that's gotten worse. Maybe that's my rose tinted glasses, but on the spot, there's nothing I can say that has gotten worse.
Mm. Okay, let's go for more positivity. Since this is Positivity Hugs Delivered, Niyati is talking about her career as a woman of color in engineering. So, how do you know that you have earned a seat at the table and your voice deserves to be heard? How to bring up that fire?
Sure. I think that was the beginning part of my advice was I wanted to set the stage, and that was part of setting the stage. Just know that there's handouts. Nothing is going being given to you for free. That you've worked hard to get to wherever you are, no matter what your ethnicity, race, orientation, immigrant status, non-immigrant status. Just know that you've worked hard at it. And the minute you believe in that and you know that you have worked just as hard as anyone else to get where you are, then, hopefully that'll shine the light at your voice deserves to be heard.
So, Niyati, you talked about your uniqueness being the great asset for a company. Why do you believe diversity is necessary in a broader sense in America and overall in the world?
Sure. That's a great question. I'm going to give you a real life example of why that matters. Not the textbook, not the different thoughts make us enriches the experience. It's not that. I'll give you a very real example. When I was at Caterpillar, we were getting ready to design a new cab. Cab is the area where the operator or the driver sits in the construction machine. So we were getting ready to design a new cab for a particular construction machine. Now, this machine is widely used in Asia. The request or voice that we got from design was that there needed to be enough room in the cab for the operator or the driver to be able to sleep overnight. Now it's really interesting. This was the voice of the customer, and I was in a room where it was all white men. I was the only immigrant, only woman, only person of color. And when this request came, somebody just kind of offhandedly laughed and said, well, "Why would you need a cab, a room inside the cab? What purpose would that serve?" It's interesting that was their response, because I immediately thought on my feet and I said, "I know exactly why." And they said, "Why?" I said, "Think about rural India, about a small town in Vietnam or a village in Thailand, and they're doing construction. There's no hotel in sight. Even if there was one, it's 50 miles away where they would have to drive a car, which they don't have access to, and the hotel would be too expensive. Maybe it's a tourist spot. In that type of a scenario where you don't have your motel that we're so used to being able to live overnight cheap without much concern, in that type of a situation, a cab and the space you leave in it is where the person is going to sleep, where they're going to have their meals, and they're going to spend day and night in that little facility. There might not be anything around them in terms of access for living. And so when I pointed that out, it dawned on them that, yeah, that's obvious for developing countries. That would be a problem. And so, we move past that. So I think that being different in a room, no matter what that diversity factor is, you're going to bring in fresh perspective that people that are like each other would not have thought of. And that's why I think it's important in the work.
That requires a little bit of creativity and a little bit of imagination, right? And the thought process. Was it always there? I mean, not every company focuses on creativity or open discussion or, a design sprint. So, how did you come up with that idea yourself? What spans these ideas, or what sparks that curiosity for you, Niyati?
Yeah, so for me, it's really simple. I say that curiosity is a chronic condition, and it spills over everything I do in life, from cooking to reading about the human body, from gray matter to dark matter. I'm eternally curious. So I'm always reading, doing research, and then I think my perspective expands just because I like to learn. I'm going to be a lifelong learner, so that's how I keep myself busy.
Absolutely, we can see a good collection of books. But before we go into books questions, let's talk to Justin Blommenberg. How can men like me be better allies?
Hi, Justin. Thank you for calling in. I'm so glad you're there. You're here. How can men like you be better allies? First of all, a round of applause for all the men who are allies, and anyone who's even showed up today and is male, you're automatically an ally. How to be better allies is, I think, just the same two examples that I just Justin about. When somebody talks over a minority in the group. When I say minority in the group, it could be a group of all women and there's only one man, and that then he's the minority. So if someone talks over the minority in the group, being able to be bold enough to interrupt or let them finish their thought and then say, hey, someone was trying to get a word in, let's give them a shot. So that is definitely an allyship that I look for even now. And the other thing that I touched on was if minority in the group suggests an idea, or say the junior most engineer suggests an idea, and then the director or executive director repeats the same idea or a version of that idea without saying something like piggybacking on that, or I like that, adding to that, without kind of giving them the credit. As an ally, you can say, hey, I think this person said something very similar. Let's see what else they have to share. And I think when people are given this stage, they will share their ideas as long as they feel safe and heard. Thanks, Justin.
Absolutely. I would also suggest looking at the dynamic in your office, looking at the dynamic in your home. Who is doing the laundry? Why don't you come up with doing the laundry once in a while? Or anything that really is felt like it's not your job, but maybe it could be your job, or it could be part of your job, part of your job description. Now, I know, Niyati, that we are to be blamed as well because we are jumping into the motherhood so keenly. I mean, we always going to do things better as mothers. So that's our biggest mistake we make, because we don't delegate these jobs to men. What would you say is another thing that you did in the household? Or is your household very traditional style household?
So I would say my husband and I are definitely partners, and it was made very obvious when he was in England for the last 10 days for work and attending a couple family events. All the burden of doing everything was entirely on me, and it was exhausting. So I was really glad to have him back. So that way we're equal partners. Another reason why we're equal partners by default is that neither of us are stay-at-home spouse. So there are women at Cummins and other women that I've met that are the primary breadwinners and their spouses stay at home. And so then I think the division of labor is all kind of I don't know what would be the right way of dividing that, but because we're both working, we just kind of have to pick up each other's slack. And the only way where we are traditional is the cooking. I really enjoy my time in the kitchen. And the reason I enjoy it is engineering is very formula based, very structured. While you can be creative with your solutions and ideas, it still needs to follow the laws of thermodynamics or physics or what have you, right? Or chemistry. Whereas in the kitchen, I love that I don't have a single recipe that I follow. I read a lot of, cooking book recipes and get ideas from them, not all original, but I like to just mix and match, throw it in, the pot and see what comes out. And I really enjoy it. And the best part about my cooking is that my children both love ethnic food that I make. They eat a decent amount of spicy food. And then my daughter will like write me these little cards or little notes where she'll say, "Amma, you're the best cooker ever." And while I could and say I'm a chef, or at least a chef at home, I don't bother. I'm like, I'm the best cooker ever, so I'll take that credit.
Absolutely. We talk about creative. You have to be creative with solutions. You have to have formula, just like in engineering. What is the formula for your workplace? Because you're managing some teams. How do you keep the diversity, and how do you keep bias out of the room?
So I'll start on the bias bit because that's an easier one. There was a talk that one of the leaders at Cummins gave. His name is Gary, and it was about bias. And it was a very simple statement he made. He said, "If you have a brain, you have bias." And I love that because I think, a lot of times you'll hear people, society, influencers, celebrities say, "I don't see color, I don't have bias, or I'm working towards not having biases." But if you have a brain, you have a bias. That's just that simple, right? So the minute we acknowledge that it's already there, then you can do something to address it. But being in denial, saying things like, "I don't see color," or "I have no biases," or "I've worked towards removing all the biases," or "I don't look at people with a preconceived notion," then you're denying that that's even happening, right? So that's my take on bias. Remove that altogether. What was the first part of your question? I was busy thinking about Gary's speech. I got distracted.
That's fabulous. Well, I was talking about your team,
Yeah,
keeping the bias out of the room and keeping
yeah.
diversity in the room and having a discussion that is truly inclusive.
Right. I think one of the best things that my team does is collaboration. So being able to discuss a complex problem that you're trying to resolve with people that are not necessarily in that field. So there are engineers, but their specialty is sensors, for example. They're engineers, but their specialty is after treatment. So still finding time and ways to collaborate with different kind of engineers, I think. Makes us more resilient to problems and being able to find solutions in a more efficient way, because they may not know your exact problem or solution, but they can draw parallels to, "Oh, I saw this in a pressure sensor and this is how we resolved it," or "This was our interim solution and then this is how we got to the bottom or cause, or the root cause of it." And so that's one thing my team does really well. And the other thing is we don't clock watch. So in terms of having work-life balance, if you need to leave early because one of your kids, or you're taking care of older parents, they're not doing well, they need attention, we're not clock watching. I think people understand that life happens, and a lot of time, even though I said the word work life, I don't see work life as a thing. I just see all of it as life. What I'm doing at work is part of my life. Raising my children is part of my life. My hobbies is part of my life. So for me, all of the whole thing is just life, right? So I think having a lot of people that, even if you have that diverse background, to have a common thinking and understanding of collaboration, of life challenges and demands, and managing that, I think that just keeps the diversity intact, I feel.
Mm. Now we have a secret YouTube user who's asking a question. What would your advice be to immigrant students who may not see as much representation in certain STEM fields, such as engineering?
Okay. So I think, yeah, depending on the type of engineering, it is possible that you may not see as much diversity. I'm trying to think. I think material science engineering is more heavily male. I think go back to the mantra, right? If you know that you have worked hard and you believe that you have earned that seat on the table, then it won't matter that people around the table sitting next to you look like you, or are from where you are, or think like you. You will start to understand your uniqueness is your strong point. Your strength is having a diverse perspective, a different perspective per se. So I think just repeat that mantra. You earned your seat at the table. And if you're the only in the room, just know that you will have allies. I have had allies all my life. And then that'll give you an opportunity to eventually be an ally for the next person who doesn't have an ally. And remember, being an ally doesn't mean I'm a woman and so I'm an ally for a woman. Ally is the men that show up for women, the senior engineers that show up for the junior engineers or the interns. And then the last thing I would say is, when I talk about allyship, and when you get there, because it is a journey and you will get there, when you get there, this is specific to women, so bear with me. I would say, use your position of power, position of influence, to empower women. And I always like to say, empowered women should empower women.
Speaking of empowered women, I would like to mention our topic of discussion in a couple of months ago, or even over a year ago. We talked about, the topic actually was STEM is a default choice. And we talked with our guest from India. And Priyanka Kamala was talking about how her parents told her that it's either engineering or being a doctor. So is that truth, or was it the same raising objective for you, Niyati?
So here's what I'm not going to talk about, my childhood and the expectations, but I'm going to talk about what we're doing for our children. So my husband's a mechanical engineer. I'm an electrical engineer. Our question to both our children is not what you're going to be when you grow up, but what kind of engineer are you going to be when you grow up? And I don't apologize for this, okay? And the next thing in that question is, when my daughter or my son, they answer mechanical engineer, I always remind them, well, you're only 6, you have time. But when they answer electrical, I'm like, spot on.
So it's a bit of a tug of words, and then you have a little bit of competition of who you're gonna side with. Now we have another question. This is from Ruth. BY has revealed herself. Ruth is asking, my question is, am I an immigrant student currently in cyber? What advice would you give for students like me in IT field? Thanks.
Okay. Hi, Ruth. Thank you for calling in. She's my next door neighbor, an immigrant and a refugee. So hats off to Ruth. Ruth, we're so lucky to have you in the United States. Advice in cybersecurity. I will tell you, you have picked one of the most up and coming, relevant fields within software to specialize in. So keep at it. Don't give up. We have a massive need of cybersecurity engineers and people that understand the system level requirements for cybersecurity. So I know we'll have a position for you, by the time you're done, before you know it. And Learner for Life is, you obviously have the same attitude as I do. Stay chronic curious. Keep reading. Don't read about cybersecurity or your field or your engineering. Read about everything and anything related to science, physics, chemistry, the universe, gray matter to dark matter. Just read all the time. And I think you will be amazed at what new thing interests you and where you want to pivot. Thanks, Ruth.
Thank you, Ruth, for your great questions. Thank you very much, our audience. You've been very active today. Now, Niyati, you mentioned the fact that you always spoke the truth, and the words of truth is truth to power, and the fact that you always put things as they are sometimes can get us, I mean, females, into a hot water because we are never just right. We either too pushy or we are too weak. So what is your golden formula? Apart from the words like, don't speak over me, you placed a nice speaking over me discussion or element in the discussion is very useful. What is the formula to keep your assertiveness not too aggressive and making sure that everybody respects you?
Right. So I think this is a bit of like we need to have a cultural shift. This isn't something one person can do, but something that we can do as a collective. And you said it, I was going to repeat the same thing, that, when women are assertive, they're known as aggressive. When men are assertive, they're leaders. We need to change that thinking. When women are empathetic, they're emotional. When men are empathetic, they're vulnerable and they're great leaders. So we always kind of, the same adjective is interpreted differently for women than it is for men. And that is something culturally across nations, across the globe, we need to make that shift, that a woman being assertive is just assertive. She's when if a woman is giving you instructions on how something is to get done, she's guiding you. She's not being a boss, right? She's not being bossy. When the men give you instructions, oh, he guided me toward, you need to change the adjective to be consistent.
Absolutely. We also talked about how to present yourself, how to make a valid presentation, how to speak like a leader before you become one. Now we have another question, last question, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any more, please chip in. This is your last chance. Michael Backenmeyer is asking, what are good ways to support women in tech when you don't work in their field? How do you be an ally to people not in your immediate workspace?
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for dialing in. I would say if they're not in your field or not in your immediate workspace, I would say the biggest difference we can make in that realm is grassroots level. Meaning, get involved with big brothers, big sisters. Get involved with organizations that introduce STEM and engineering to middle school and high school girls, to inner city schools that may not have access to as much equipment or may not have assigned STEM teacher. And I think kind of influencing that pipeline, Michael, will then ensure that even though you're not in the same workplace or the same field or adjacent to them, you have influenced young girls and young women to be in that field, and you're indirectly supporting. So you're still an ally, but you're doing it at the pipeline level. And a lot of the not having enough women leaders, not having enough women engineers, all of that, while we're addressing it by interviewing a diverse pool of applicants or expanding the universities you go to, that's all kind of later on in the pipeline. If you influence the beginning, the grassroots level of who's actually even going into engineering, then you've changed the workforce dynamic. I think that's where you can make a difference. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. One of the latest statistics show also, let me add into this comment, showed that women still outnumber the number of men finishing college and higher education. Somehow we never make it there. So, Michael, don't be bounded by the fact that you just need to support women in technology. You need to support females in all the fields, because we need more female leaders who are going to change the dynamic of business, politics, wherever your domain is, you can always help. Now, let's go to our final questions of today. Niyati, it's been such a pleasure to talk about your career, but I would like to ask a couple of questions that I always like to ask. So, let's start with your beautiful book collection. What is the number one book that you wish you read before you started your career?
Okay, sure. I would say I wish I had read Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. The book talks about vulnerability as a strength and offers strategies to cultivate a sense of self-worth while daring to be authentic. And as I've given you a lot of examples of, if I had one identity crisis, how I try to come out of it and be authentic and true to myself. I think if I had read that book, it didn't exist 18 years ago, but if I had read that book, I think I would make fewer blunders. Yeah, that's my advice.
Excellent. What about your life lesson quote, and how did it change you?
Sure. My life lesson quote is by John Shedd. For those of you who may not know the name, that's like the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago is named after him. He is quoted to have said that a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are made for. And I like that a lot. What that quote, it doesn't necessarily shape me, but it reflects who I am, which is I'm adventurous in spirit, and I want to try new things. I want to see new places, meet new people, immerse myself in different cultures. And I think that defines it in the quote, that a ship is safe in harbor. I would be safe, where I am, not trying new things, not meeting new people, but that's not what ships are made for. And that's definitely not what I'm made for.
So how did that impacted your career? You, apart from leaving your safe ship of your own country, is there any more examples of how you tackled going out of your comfort zone?
Yes. When I was working at Caterpillar, I was in an engineering development program, and there was a 6-month assignment that I was able to get assigned to Peterborough, UK, to do engine research. And those 6 months really shaped me, because I was away from the headquarters for the first time in a satellite facility and understanding the challenges of living in the UK and versus the US, where the headquarters is based. And then I repeated similarly, as I mentioned earlier today, that I worked for Cummins in Daventry, UK, living in the West Midlands, which is like the Midwest of England is the West Midlands. We lived in Leamington Spa, a beautiful spa, made the best neighbors we could have possibly imagined. And I think I seek opportunities where I am forced to immerse myself in another culture. It's not a 2-week visit and you're done, right? Living there, paying taxes, learning to drive manual stick shift in England, getting my license there. So there are a lot of things, and I hope to provide such opportunities to my children as well. We travel with them everywhere, but we haven't lived in another country. So it's only been 2-3 week long visits, and then we come back. But even that, at the age of 9 and 6, they have learned so much from, and they're so resilient given their little young ages and little, life experience that they have. They're very worldly, and that makes me really proud.
Absolutely. We are definitely keeping our fingers crossed for your daughters. Now, you said a very good quotation, because actually it's been quoted to be said by Admiral Grace Hopper. So it's good to also remind that it was John Shedd who said that first. Now, let's go to the question of and actually quotation by Eleanor Roosevelt, women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are put in hot water. How is Niyati in hot water? How are you brewing?
Well, I hope I'm marinating. So I would say, hot water is so relative, right? So getting the kids ready for the school bus on time, that's hot water. uh, Getting my visa sponsored and being able to get my green card and now a citizenship, that's a long-term test. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Going through breast cancer treatment, with having two young children, that's hot water. So I think it's relative. Uh, I think we all get tested from time and time again. Life throws curveballs at us. We face our own challenges, and hopefully learn and come out stronger the other side.
With a better formula and much better, I don't know, chai latte.
There you go.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about the fact that we can dream, and what would be your dream travels, and who would you invite as your special guest to have a private breakfast anywhere in the world?
Okay, that's a cool question. Okay, so you said anywhere in the world, and it could be anyone. So I would say,
Absolutely.
because you didn't say dead or living, I'm going to say Amelia Earhart, for her pioneering spirit, fearless attitude, self confidence, self worth, and willing to go after the impossible. And the place where we'd eat breakfast would be my kitchen, because I am the best cooker ever. But wanted me to be grounded in reality, which I can do. There's a particular Indian sports personality. Her name is Bhakti Sharma. She was the first Asian woman and the youngest in the world to set a record in open water swim in Antarctica, in the cold waters of Antarctica. She's also swam in all 5 oceans and across 8 seas and channels. I would love to meet her, and breakfast location would still have to be my home. I think with both these women, it's something about an adventurous soul and being the first of your kind that draws me to their brilliant personalities.
Well, that ship has not sailed yet for you, and you can definitely meet Bhakti Sharma. I hope you're gonna do that, Niyati.
Sure.
Fingers crossed. And since we are heading towards the end of our show, I would like to ask you, is there any exciting project on your pipeline?
Yes, I have 2 things coming up in October. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I will be talking at the Society of Women in International Conference in LA, and the topic is going to be about winning with vulnerability. And the other big thing that's happening, I'm going to keep under wraps because I'm really excited about it and I don't want it to fall through. So when it does come to fruition, I will definitely share it.
Absolutely, we'd love to hear that and share it with our community and share with the world, because it's not just the world of ships, not just the world of planes and exciting journeys, it's a world of opportunities for us all, as long as we know how to ask for the seat at the table. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today was Niyati, and she was joining us from the beautiful location. And I would like to thank you, Niyati, with this quotation. Engineering is not about being the smartest in the room, but about being the most persistent and hardworking, as Reshma Sarjani said. Now, this is all from this new season of Positivity Hacks Delivered. I believe we had lots of positivity. Thank you so much for our great audience. Thank you, Aisha, Dalal, Mari, Olga, Vasina, Ruth, Justin Blomberg, IPO Team Patrick's Opinion, Ram Kakat, Michael Buckmeyer. And next week, we would like to invite you for our show. Hopefully, we will have our guest ready. Right now, we are just waiting for final confirmation. However, if you would like to speak to our audience, you would like to be a guest, please reach out to us and we will be happy to host you. That's it from episode 114 of the PhD live stream, thanks to our guest Niyati Tamaskar. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Woman on IT and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude, as Maya Angelou says. Today is your day to hack the future. Hack the positivity you want. Thank you.